shotguns bring a tremendous firepower to a normally short fight. They are dangerous for everyone and everything on the bad end of them. However, there are some shotguns that are so cheaply made or so poorly designed that they are dangerous for the shooter. Others might be less dangerous for the one pulling the trigger, but similar so for whatever they are aimed at. Number 5. Saltwood Brownings. Brownings superposed are easily some of the best shotguns ever made. But still, they also make it on this list in the form of Saltwood Brownings. Those shotguns were so well designed and built that they would actually rust from the inside out. Sold in the 60s and 70s, they were mostly superposed from Browning, but there were also some Safari, T-Bolts, Olympian, and Medallion-grade rifles, as well as some special commemorative edition Auto 5 that suffered the same flaw of being stocked with saltwood. Gunstock wood can only be used when it's really dry. However, drying it does take several months, but there was a really high demand for Browning's gun in the 1960s, so that the company tried to find a way around this time drain. For that, the company got a large amount of California walnut. Now, California walnut is not necessarily the best wood to use, as it cracks easily if you dry it too fast. Here, Browning had the great idea of using a new process that was developed for the furniture industry at that time, known as salt drying. It made it possible to cut the drying time considerably, and the wood is in a great condition afterwards. Thought and done, and Browning bought it. I mean, what can go wrong using an untested process for the gun industry, especially when it introduced salted wood into an environment full of steel and depending on its strength? To actually use this process, the wood was stacked and the salt was applied. The moisture from the wood was drawn out very well, but it created a brine solution that dipped down and soaked the bottom planks. As soon as the brined wood was turned into stocks and forends and actually fitted onto steel frames, the guns started to rust. Interestingly enough, the outside looked quite normal, so nobody could see what happened on the inside where the stock headed up against the metal. This salt drying method was used from 1966 to 1970. Once discovered, Browning replaced the saltwood stocks, but that salty wood should have been avoided to begin with. Number 4. Boito Double. Boitos are shotguns that are renowned for being horrible. Kmart, once a chain of more than 2,000 stores coast to coast, were not only cheap, they also tried to attract customers by offering a wide variety of products. One of them was meant to be a really cheap shotgun, the Boito side-by-side. Made in Brazil, they were imported in the early 80s and came with everything you did not want. That started with a really crude finish made of soft steel. As an extra, they just did not work well. On the upside, they had Kmart stamped on them and cost only in the area of $100. Those were the only two things you can actually name as being on the good side. The Boitos were cheap in every regard. Interestingly enough, if you did buy one of them at that time and managed to not break it over the years, you might be able to sell it with a large increase in value. You might actually get $175 for it by today's standard. Number 3. Winchester Model 11 SL. Yes, a Winchester is on this list. There is a reason for it. John Browning, you might know this name, was a very clever guy. When he designed the Auto 5 shotgun, he made sure to patent everything you can think of, even the charging handle, which is quite important as you will see. That made it hard to copy this gun, so Winchester had to go a different route. They put T.C. Johnson on the task to design a semi-auto that can do the same, but does not infringe on any of Browning's patents. The weak point in this plan was the said charging handle. Johnson could not just put something similar on his gun, so he decided to put a knurled section on the barrel. This led to an interesting procedure for opening the gun. You put it with the butt on the ground, hold the barrel, and then push down. This does sound dangerous enough, but there is a little bit more to it that you also need to know. At that time, paper shells were used that tended to get wet and well up right in the chamber, leading them to becoming stuck. If you now try to clear them with this procedure by putting the butt on the ground and pushing as hard as you could, you created the real risk of causing a slam fire. Of course, with such a procedure, it was not that uncommon to have the head over the barrel at exactly that moment, so the users literally shot themselves in the face with the Model 11 SL. This tendency to dispatch the owner earned this gun the nickname Widowmaker. This fatal flaw is problematic enough if you ask me, but there were other issues with this gun as well. For example, it used fiber buffers instead of the metal friction rings used by the design of John Browning. This meant that they would wear out over time so that the gun would kick extra hard, simply splitting the stock. Number 2. Winchester 1400. The Winchester 1400 is a prime example that a bad design doesn't mean that each and every single gun that uses it is bad. Rather, it is the fact that the design produces way more lemons than is normal, which makes it poor. The Winchester Model 1400 worked well with many shooters who never had a problem with it, and even the great skeet shooter, Wayne Mays, used it in 12-gauge events. However, that is no proof that the gun is a great design. Introduced in 1964, Winchester tried to cut costs by making the design overall cheaper. That was a new trend in gun production at the time, leading to affordable and very successful platforms like the Mossberg 500 and the Remington 870. Also, Remington's 1100 had just come out in 1963, a great success that was almost impossible to follow. Winchester tried its luck by going even cheaper. For that, plastic was used, for example in the magazine throat, which incidentally doubles as a bolt release. For normal hunting use, that might be just fine, but for skeet shooting, a more durable system is needed. Winchester was franchising gun clubs all across the country, leading to the 1400s being used as rental guns that do get shot a lot. That caused problems over problems until finally, in 1968, the plastic throat was redesigned, creating the 1400 Mark II. Number 1. Remington CTI 105. The Remington CTI 105 is not only one of the worst shotguns that was ever made, it was also one of the shotguns that got a Best of the Best award. Remington tried to come back at the top of the gas-operated shotgun game that the company owned previously with the 1100. For that, the engineers had to come up with outside-the-box solutions which led to the design of the CTI 105. Its receiver was partly made of titanium and came with a carbon fiber rib. Also, it was a bottom eject design, which was so unusual that there is no other semi-auto design I can think of using it as well. The CTI 105 came with a lot of advantages. First and foremost, it was soft shooting, which is important if you consider the recoil generally associated with shotguns. Also, the shells would not be thrown all over the place. It was a well-balanced gun that also sported a really good look. Remington put the guns through its paces and fired thousands and thousands of rounds through it. They just forgot one thing. At that time, there were really cheap Walmart loads made by Winchester in packs of 100 shells each. They were easily the most popular shotgun ammo of that time. What Remington did not do was test their guns with those shells. The shells were known to cause problems in other guns as well. However, the CTI 105 would just go one step further. It would just bend them instead of lifting them up to be chambered. Simply put, if your shotgun does not shoot what most Americans feed it, it is not easy to actually sell it, which was the case with the CTI 105. Remington tried to fix the problem but ultimately failed. And there you have it, guys. 5 shotguns you should avoid buying, or if you own them, avoid shooting them. If you have another good example for this list, let us know in the comments.